Guest who thinks that those issues could actually be good for the Democrats. Frank.
The Democrats were quite excited several weeks ago when they won a congressional district in traditionally Republican upstate New York. And they think they won it because of the budget and specifically Medicare. To get a Democratic perspective, we've gone to the ranking member of the Budget Committee, Maryland Congressman Chris Van Hollen. I'd like to ask you, you're facing the American people here, and I want you to grab your dials. What's the Democratic approach?
Well, let me tell you, and I'm told I could stand up. I think all of us in this room, Frank, can agree that the federal government needs to live within its means, just like every American family. I think the question is not whether we reduce the federal deficit, but how we do it. And we think there's a right way to do it, and we think there's a wrong way to do it. We think it would be wrong to take any steps now that would shock a very fragile economy and put people out of work. We also think it's wrong to take a lopsided approach that protects special interest tax breaks for big corporations, like oil subsidies, at the same time that we're slashing Medicare or education. We think that's wrong. We think it's wrong to end the Medicare guarantee and force seniors into the private insurance market where they will face much higher costs or much lower benefits from insurance companies that will ration care. And we definitely think it's wrong for members of Congress to provide themselves with a much better health care deal than we provide to seniors. We think there's a better way.
Positive reaction, raise your hands. Negative reaction, raise your hands. Are the people who voted for Barack Obama who had a negative reaction to that? I'm just curious. Tell me why.
Well, one of the things I'd like to know about is the Medicare, when the personal responsibilities can be brought into the picture, such as tobacco use, alcohol, lack of exercise, dietary. I mean, that's what really, in my opinion, one of the things that has never been addressed, you really don't hear much talk about, and that's a great way to save a lot of money.
Well, actually,
everyone go back to 50. You're up.
Well, it's a very good point because preventative health care is got to be a very important part of saving money in the long term and getting better health outcomes, right? So diet and exercise. And in fact, in the health reform bill, I know lots of elements were controversial, but in fact, one of the things that we said in that bill was that in setting insurance rates, you could take into account some of those things. So I think that that's got to be part of the overall equation.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You started your presentation by saying what you were against. Isn't that what's wrong with Washington? That we go negative before we go positive?
Well, what I said, Frank, was we think that there's a right way to do it and a way that's not the right way to do it. And that's what the debate in this country is all about. We need to have strong debates. At the end of the day, what we need to do is make sure that we reach the necessary compromises to move the country forward. Frankly, that's what we're trying to do in the group that's put together by the Vice President that I participate on, trying to bring those different ideas together so that we can fashion a compromise.
Comments?
Congressman, aren't you pitting the government against private insurance companies? I mean, isn't that an unfair competition model?
Everyone at 50?
Just the reason we created Medicare to begin with back in 1965 was because the private insurance market was failing at providing seniors with affordable health care. It just wasn't a good market for them. That's why we created it to begin with. So why would we want to go back to a system where we end that option for seniors? We say you can't even have the option of staying in the traditional Medicare program. You've got to go into the private insurance market. And the independent analysis by the Congressional Budget Office shows that will actually increase costs or reduce benefits. And again, those are not my numbers. I think one thing we all should agree on is that we should operate off a common set of facts. We're going to disagree on the arguments that we have, but in terms of facts, I do think that's important.
And I want comments. James, what's your reaction?
Talk about auditing private insurance company or private companies. How about auditing the Fed? There's a lot of money out there from the first bailout that's still unaccounted for.
Kathy.
That's missing in action.
What I worry about is, I didn't vote for Obama, but I was hoping that he would be president of the United States, not of the Democrats. And what I'm seeing is when the Democrats put up something, the Republicans tear it down, and when the Republicans put up something, it's like constant fighting. Everybody's afraid to put up something. You guys need to get together and get our United States, do it for the country, not for your political career.
Do you agree? Charlie.
You said that private insurance was failing our seniors to provide health care. isn't Medicare failing right now? We know that there's over $50 trillion in unfunded liabilities to Medicare right now.
Joshua.
Thanks very much, Frank. Look, Congressman, last year I paid several $1,000s more taxes than General Electric, despite the fact that I got a tax cut under President Obama last year. What do you think we could be doing, if we brought in corporate taxes at the rate that we did, say, under President Eisenhower?
Right.
Everyone at 50? Go ahead.
Well, you raised a lot of different issues. Let me just try and address some of them, starting with the corporate taxes. The reality is that over time we have built up lots of special interest loopholes in the tax code, which is why you have major corporations who at the end of the day are not only paying no taxes themselves, but actually getting a subsidy from the federal government. So we think they've got to be part of the solution. We're not saying you do this all on the revenue side or all on the spending side.
So let me ask you as a show of hands, are they going to come to an agreement on the budget, yes or no? Who says yes?
No one's going to like it.
Who says no? They're not confident. Will they come to an agreement? Will they come to an agreement on Medicare? Who says yes?
No, I see.
Who says no? We got a long way to go, but you know what's important? Voters get a chance to tell the politicians what they think, so at least your voices have been heard. Congressman Van Hollen, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you all very much.
And I want to thank you all for watching. This debate is going to continue for the coming weeks and months. You have a responsibility to follow what goes on, to pay attention, and to have your voice heard, and that's the purpose of this.
And as always, thank you for being with us. And a big thank you to Frank and all of the voters and politicians who were brave enough to lay it all out in front of you, the American people. Thanks for being with us, and I hope you have a great night.